the blessing we waited for. There were days when hope felt like a faraway star, too distant to reach yet too bright to forget. We waited in silence, holding on to faith, even when the world grew quiet around us. Every sunrise was another reminder of longing, another test of patience, another whisper that something beautiful was on its way. We dreamed not of perfection, but of a simple miracle, something gentle, something real, something that would make the waiting worthwhile. The nights were long, but our hearts kept glowing with a quiet belief that love always finds a way. We carried prayers like lanterns through the darkness, trusting they would light the path to what was meant for us. And when doubt tried to settle in, we held each other tighter, knowing that sometimes the longest waits hide the most beautiful blessings. We didn't know when or how, but deep within, we knew the universe was listening, preparing the moment when everything would finally make sense. The waiting changed us in ways we never expected. It softened our hearts and made us more grateful for small mercies. The warmth of morning light, the strength of held hands, the comfort of shared silence. Each day, we learned to surrender a little more, to trust that timing isn't cruel but divine. There were moments when tears felt endless, when dreams seemed to crumble under the weight of uncertainty, yet we kept going. We whispered promises into the night, telling each other that when the blessing finally came, we'd cherish it with every breath. And though impatience sometimes knocked on the door, love answered with calm assurance. We learned that faith isn't about control, it's about release. Every second of waiting became a stitch in the fabric of our endurance. And through that endurance, we built something sacred, a love strong enough to hold joy when it finally arrived, gentle enough to nurture it when it did. Then one morning, the air felt different, lighter, warmer, full of possibility. The same world looked softer, as if it had been kissed by grace. It wasn't a grand revelation, no thunder or lightning, just a quiet knowing deep within our bones that something had shifted. And then it happened. The blessing we had prayed for, cried for, waited for, it came. Not as a storm or a miracle written across the sky, but as a whisper of peace settling over our hearts. Everything we had lost suddenly found meaning. Every tear felt justified. We held the moment close, afraid it might vanish, but it stayed, gentle and steady, as if it had always belonged to us. In that moment, time stopped. Every ache turned to gratitude. Every wound began to heal. We realized that blessings don't always arrive with grandeur. Sometimes they come softly, disguised as everything we never knew we needed. We held that blessing as though it were light itself, afraid to blink, afraid to lose the magic that had taken so long to find us. The world seemed to hum differently, every color brighter, every breath fuller. Gratitude became our language, spoken in smiles, in tears, in the way our hands trembled when we realized we were living inside the very dream we once only prayed for. We remembered every night of doubt, every whispered plea, every moment we almost gave up, and understood why the wait had been so long. The waiting prepared us for this moment, taught us to hold gently, to love deeply, to see beauty even in fragility. The blessing wasn't just what we received, it was who we became through the journey. We were stronger, softer, more alive. And as we watched the world through new eyes, we knew this, the waiting was worth it. Every second had led us here. There's something sacred about fulfillment after patience, something divine about receiving what you once feared you'd never have. We learned that blessings come not to fix you, but to complete the parts you've already healed. The blessing we waited for didn't erase our pain, it gave purpose to it. We looked back and saw the hidden patterns, how every delay had been a design, every detour a lesson in love and faith. The universe wasn't late. We just needed to grow enough to hold what it was sending. I remember the peace that washed over me the first time I realized it was real, that this was not a dream. I touched it, felt it, lived it, and it was everything I never dared to believe I could have. For the first time, I understood what grace truly meant. It wasn't luck. It was divine timing wrapped in mercy, but of the journey that brought it forth. We no longer ask, why so long? Because we understand now. It took time to shape us into the kind of souls who could hold such grace. And we hold it dearly, every day, with hearts overflowing. Sometimes I wonder how many blessings we miss while we're too focused on what hasn't arrived yet. The waiting taught us patience, but the blessing taught us presence. It showed us that peace doesn't begin when the waiting ends. It begins when trust does. And in trusting, we began to see miracles even in the ordinary. Every day became holy ground, every heartbeat a hymn of gratitude. I no longer see waiting as empty space, it's sacred preparation. I see now that every unanswered prayer was answered in a better way, every delay an act of divine love. The blessing we waited for didn't just fulfill a dream, it awakened our hearts to how loved we truly are. And though we once begged for its arrival, now we simply live in awe that it came perfectly, tenderly, when it was always meant to. Now that the waiting has ended, I find myself holding not just the blessing, but the wisdom it brought with it. I learn that love deepens through patience, faith strengthens through silence, and joy blossoms only when watered by endurance. The blessing reminded us that miracles are not just found, they're grown. And we grew into this one, step by step, prayer by prayer, tear by tear. There's beauty in the way it all unfolded, as if every piece of pain had been leading to this one gentle revelation. That we were never forgotten. The universe had been listening all along, weaving our story with precision. And now, as I stand in the warmth of this answered prayer, I no longer see the waiting as loss. It was love in disguise, love that took time, but love that came exactly when it was meant to. And so, here we are, living the answer to our prayers, breathing the proof that hope was never wasted. The blessing we waited for has filled our days with meaning and our hearts with peace. But beyond what we received, we've gained something even greater. Faith that doesn't falter when life tests us again. The waiting taught us patience, the blessing taught us gratitude. Together, they shaped a love story written by divine hands. Now, when I look at what we once longed for, I smile not because it's finally ours, but because we never stopped believing it could be. The blessing came, as all true blessings do, gently, beautifully, in perfect time. And every breath since then has been a thank You whispered into the sky. We waited, we trusted, and we received the blessing we waited for, the one we were always meant to find.